Hi, it's Shani, certified feline training and behavior specialist with Wild at Heart, and let's talk about cats in shelters. Because these cats are different than a cat in a home. This video will be a great training tool for shelter workers, volunteers, visitors, adopters, and supporters. There are no bad cats. I genuinely believe this. I have never met a cat I didn't like, and I've met hundreds of cats. I've met cats with different personalities. I've met cats that I've connected more deeply to, but my perception of that cat or my relationship with that cat doesn't define their worth or their right to freedom, autonomy, or happiness. The cats we meet at shelters are different because cats in shelters experience a unique kind of stress and frustration. Cats are more attached to their place or environment versus people. That is not to say that they don't love people, but cats choose their territory and they attach themselves to it. They do everything to make it theirs. They mark it with their scents, their claws, and their things. Cats coming into a shelter experience a complete destruction of their stability and foundation. It's a special type of stress. So when you enter a cat space at the shelter, you need to realize that this is their home and we need to respect that home. Realize that we are entering their safe space and we can sometimes have a big presence that can be disturbing or stressful for some cats. So be mindful of the volume, cadence, tone, and repetition of your voice. Be aware of your movements and body language, and more than anything, give them consent. Because cats have this severe attachment to their place and space is why it's best to avoid moving cats around at the shelter too much. Plan ahead and do your best to keep them where they are unless bigger and better space is available to them. But if you do have to move them, remember to take everything in their space with them because it smells like them, and that can help them transition into a new space. Because every time they are moved, we are again completely rocking their foundation, their safe space, and they have to literally start all over again. One study found that moving a cat just once induced herpes virus shedding in 18% of cats, which can lead to upper respiratory infection and other illnesses. So get the cat where they need to be immediately and do your best to not move them again. Sickness in cats is more about prevention and not necessarily about treatment. Stress reduction is the key to prevention. We need to focus on both preventing cats from stepping paws into a shelter, and we also need to make intake to placement as fast as possible. Go back to the fact that shelters make cats sick, and the longer they are here, the more likely they will get sick and possibly die. So if a cat cannot avoid coming into the shelter, their intake should be done on arrival, and they should be made available for adoption no later than 24 to 48 hours and or put into foster. Focus should be put into preventing cats from ever entering a shelter. Some folks want to keep their cats but may have a need they cannot attain. Some simply need access to cat food, basic vet care, or have a basic behavior issue. Can you help that cat stay in their home? If you can't solve the issue they have, you can provide a courtesy post for people who need to rehome their cats. Use your social media and your local community to find new homes for cats so they don't have to come to the shelter. For lost and found cats, urge the finders to keep the cat where they found them. Statistics show that when you remove a cat from their neighborhood, their chance of being reunited with their family drastically decreases. In fact, only about 2% of lost cats who are brought to shelters are reunited with their families. So they actually have a better chance at going home if people just leave them where they found them. There are a lot of resources out there to help lost cats. Social media, bulletin boards, community boards. Shelters are just not the answer. Do your best to prevent people from bringing you stray or community cats. All stray and community cats should be TNR'd unless they are sick or injured. I have a whole video on this subject called Who is Killing Cats? I encourage you to watch it. Shelters make cats sick. They were not designed for cats, and most shelters deprive cats of their very basic instincts and needs. This isn't to vilify shelters, as they were created to help solve a massive issue of overpopulation. It goes without saying, cats in cages is wrong. It's unnatural, it's stressful, it's deprivation, and every shelter should be doing everything they can to move away from housing cats in cages. There is this idea that we need to confine cats because letting them mingle together will cause fighting and easily spread illness. The number one cause of cats getting sick is stress. That is fact. The cause of that stress, in my certified cat behaviorist opinion, is confinement and deprivation. When I first started at the shelter, all of the condos were filled and only one cat was let out at a time for about 20 minutes, maybe 2 times a day. We had such a high rate of upper respiratory infection, also known as URI, a common ailment among cats in shelters. Most people would assume keeping the cats confined and separate would stop the spread of URI, but the cats still had URI because of the confinement. So I started opening all the doors of the condos and letting all the cats intermingle together in the back area. Once I started opening up the doors, our upper respiratory infection rate was non-existent. And of course, the cats who didn't thrive in group housing, we found alternative places. I have taken so many webinars and trainings on making confinement nicer, and I think we just need to move past this idea. All shelters should be making a concerted effort to get rid of cages, condos, and confinement versus trying to make something that just isn't natural somehow better. Some cats thrive in group housing while others prefer their own space, but the space should be bigger than a 1 to 2 part cage or condo. I know that all shelters are doing their best, but the big picture is rethinking how we currently shelter cats. Because I don't care what anyone says, humans shouldn't be okay with animals in cages. So I would love for you all to imagine losing the home you love and losing the people you love. And now imagine being in a completely new place, a scary place, a loud place with a bunch of strangers. You have no idea why you are there and you have no idea what is going to happen to you. I would like for you at some point to go inside your laundry room, bathroom, or closet and just sit in there with the door closed. Now imagine never being able to leave. Imagine feeling really anxious, like you're going to jump out of your skin and not being able to escape. Now imagine being in there for hours, days, weeks, months. That inherent deprivation that happens in shelters is hard for most people to understand because it's not severe outright abuse, right? But it absolutely leads to suffering, stress, anxiety, frustration, and sadness. Add in the fact that they have no control over their environment. They don't choose when or who comes to visit them. They don't choose when they get a break, when they get treats, wet food, or to be played with, or what sort of interactions they want to experience. They are literally trapped. Now imagine that you're in your little closet or bathroom and you're feeling anxious or you're just feeling a certain type of way. And suddenly someone comes in and they're like, hey, I'm gonna hang out with you. And then they start touching you when you don't wanna be touched. And you can't say no because you don't speak their language. So you try other things, but they still don't listen. So you swat or you bite. Then you're punished for it, or worse, killed. They need you to understand their perspective. Now, knowing all of that, would you label a cat who has more severe reactions to that stress, anxiety, and frustration a bad cat? Or would you have compassion, understanding, and love? A cat who is labeled as fractious, a word I loathe, by the way, is not a bad, mean, or lesser than cat. It just means that their coping abilities are not as strong as others. So a cat who is labeled as friendly is not a better or nicer cat. We need to really move away from using these sorts of labels. Instead say, this cat can become overstimulated versus this cat is mean or a jerk. All cats are wonderful, they are perfect, they are deserving of the same level of attention and care from us, no matter how they act. And we can never judge a cat in the shelter environment. My cat is the best cat in the whole world. She's silly, funny, and playful. She's so affectionate, so loving, and so deeply loyal to me. I think if she could, she would walk through flames to get to me. But she would absolutely be labeled badly in a shelter, no doubt. She would have extensive behavior notes, behavior plans, and if she was there long enough, she would probably bite someone or even be euthanized. This perfect little angel would not thrive in a shelter, and she absolutely would be punished for it. We need to rethink how we shelter cats in this country. We need to remember that biting for cats is a completely normal behavior. It's instinctual, it's communicative, it's in their genes. Cats are natural predators and honestly killers, whether we like it or not. And though many cats are forced to stifle those natural instincts, we as humans must replace them. So shelter staff and volunteers need to do their best to care for cats in this extremely unnatural environment they have been forced to live in, by providing opportunities for cats to experience their natural instincts. Shelters need to stop doing behavior assessments during intakes. Imagine if your whole personality was judged after being brought to a scary place where you are restrained and given shots and medicines against your will. I don't know about you, but I would fight like hell. When we do behavior assessments during intakes, we are setting cats up to fail. We are putting unfair labels and expectations on them, and sometimes even killing them based on their very natural reactions to extreme stress. It's not accurate, and we need to stop doing it. Since cats in shelters aren't allowed to go outside and hunt, we need to replace those very natural instincts with something else and set them up for success. Because if they aren't biting toys, then they're biting you, which is why you hear me all the time talking about how important play is. Because play is mimicking hunting, and that reduces fear, anxiety, and stress. Because it's nearly impossible for a cat to be afraid and playing at the same time. When you play with cats, they should be going through the complete prey sequence. 1 is staring, 2 is stalking and chasing, 3 is pouncing and grabbing, and 4 is performing the kill bite. It's important that cats go through the entire sequence at least once during a play session. Joining cats versus forcing cats. As you know, a lot of cats hide in shelters. There's nothing wrong with a cat who hides. So joining a cat who is hiding is simply sitting with them, talking with them, offering food or treats, trying to engage them with play maybe, or just being a presence in the room. Forcing a cat would either be direct force of pulling them out of their hiding place, but it can also be something less overtly forceful, like trying to lure the cat out. If you're constantly trying to lure a cat out, you're sort of saying that there's something wrong with that cat hiding. We want to accept the cat where they are in that moment and join them versus force them, because cats hiding is completely normal and it's actually good. It's their way of self-soothing, stress reducing, and protecting themselves. It's not a negative thing or something we want to change or prevent. And just because a cat hides in the shelter environment and never comes out does not mean that they're going to act that way in a loving home. We have absolutely adopted out cats who have never come out of hiding in the shelter, and they have been the most social, loving, and affectionate cats in a home. This video is not to villainize shelters, but to urge all of us to do better within our means, but to also look above and beyond our means and think big. We need to completely rethink what we've been taught is normal and acceptable, because cats deserve better. I am always open to discuss these topics, brainstorm, and share ideas. This is Shani, Certified Feline Training and Behavior Specialist. Let's keep cats wild at heart. Thank you so much for watching. Please comment, like, and share.